Hello students, I welcome you all to this session in which the FEM theory is going to be applied for the two element solution. But before we do that, let me just revise what has been done so far. We have taken the domain. In the first example, we have divided the domain into one element having node 1 and node 2 at the two ends. Accordingly, the nodal locations were XA and XB, and UA and UB happen to be the value of the unknown parameter at the two nodes. And then we had the boundary conditions prescribed in terms of the value of u at x is equal to 1, and similarly there was another boundary condition prescribed in terms of the flux at x is equal to 2. So these two boundary conditions were known to us. Obviously, the first boundary condition happens to be a essential boundary condition, and the second boundary condition happens to be a natural boundary conditions. We have already we have also discussed the difference between these two boundary conditions and the difference in the procedure which is supposed to be taken when these two boundary conditions are going to be applied over the in the FEM solution. And then we have taken a linear expression as a trial function. The expression is on display. A151 u is equal to A151 plus A252, and similarly the expressions of phi1 and phi2 were also derived in the previous exercise. Both phi1 and phi2 happen to be linear expression, and they have been developed for the linear element also. Similarly, we got the equation number 1 as a result of the FEM process. We have two equations because the element itself had two nodes. We have two equations because the element itself has two nodes. Out of this, on the right hand side, the term appearing on the right hand side of equation number 1, that is the flux term appearing on the right hand side of equation number 1 is a known quantity. So the first equation cannot be used, but the flux term appearing on the right hand side of equation number 2, that happen that happens to be a known quantity. Therefore, it can be equation number 2 can be used. Now, equation number 2 contains two unknowns, a1 and a2, out of which the value of a1 is going to be known because we have a essential boundary condition which is going to give you the value of a1, which indirectly means that in equation 2 there happens to be only one unknown, that is a2, and so equation number 2 can very well be solved to get the value of a2, which basically is going to complete our uh, FEM solution. Now we are going to proceed with the two element solution in which the domain is going to be divided into two linear elements. So in total there are three nodes: node number 1 at XA, node number 2 at XB, and node number 3 at XC. Please notice that the endpoints of the domain are still designated by two nodes, node 1 and node 2, located at XA and XB. This is the same as we have done in the case of a linear element. Linear element में भी जो दो nodes थी, node number 1 and node number 2, they were located at XA and XB. But we now have a new node, node number 3, located at x is equal to XC. So these are the two elements. Element number 1 comprising of node 1 to node 3, and element number 2 comprising of node 3 to node 2. Now we are going to apply in the coming slides, we are going to apply the equation number 1, which has been obtained for a linear element. We are going to apply the equations obtained for a linear element to these two elements, that is element number 1 and element number 2. Please notice that equation number 1 has been obtained when there was only one element in the entire domain. Therefore, it consists of locations such as xa and xb. But when we are going to apply this equation number 1 for element number 1 in the two element solution, element number 1 consists of xa and xc. So, we are going to simply replace the term xb in equation number 1 by xc to get a equivalent solution, equivalent equations for element number 1. And similarly, when we are going to apply equation number 1 for element number 2 in the two element solution, we are going to replace xa with xc, which is going to give us two equations for element number 2, which means that now we are going to have two equations for element number 1, two equations for element number 2. So, in total we have four equations, two equations for element number 1 and two equations for element number 2. And then as a next step, the four equations are going to be clubbed. They are going to be clubbed in a single matrix of size 4 by 4 obviously. And then we are going to apply the continuity equation, continuity condition to reduce the size of the matrix from 4 by 4 to 3 by 3. So, continuity of the solution is a new term which is going to be discussed in the future slides. Obviously, when the entire domain has been taken up as a single element, there is no question of continuity which is arising, because the entire solution in the entire domain is a linear solution. But when the domain is broken down into elements and then the equations of the elements are clubbed together, then the requirement of continuity of the solution between the elements that arises. Of course, within the element, within any of the element in this particular case, within any of the element, the uh, solution is continuous because it is a linear expression which we have already chosen. But once the domain has been broken down into a number of elements and then it is clubbed together, then the unknown parameter is supposed to be continuous between two elements also. So, that is the new condition, that is the new requirement which is going to arise, and this is also going to be discussed in the future uh, slides. Now, in the next slide, we are going to discuss something about continuity. So, we have two elements on display. The polynomial, the trial function for element number 1 is going to be u1 is equal to a151 plus a252, where the expressions for a1 and a2 are on display. They are in terms of xa and xc, and they are in terms of xa and xc, but they have been derived in a manner similar to what we have done in the previous classes. Both phi1 and phi2 happen to be linear expressions, and for the first element a1 and a2 are the two unknowns. Similarly, for element number 2, we have another trial function, u2 is equal to a353 plus A454, where A3 and A4 are now the two values, two unknown parameters, and the expressions for phi 3 and phi 4 are on display now, which are in terms of xb and xc. So simply, if we derive the values, if we derive the expressions for a shape function, for a linear shape function for any of the element, we can simply substitute the locations of the nodes to get the shape functions for any linear element. So this is what has been done in this particular case. The other thing to be noticed is that since the elemental equations are being developed as if the element was existing independently, we take the first element, it has two nodes, so it is going to give you two unknowns. Similarly, we are going to take the second element, it has two nodes, therefore it is going to have another set of two unknowns. Equations of these elements are going to be developed by taking the elements one by one, and the equations are going to be developed as if that particular element was existing independently. We are not going to consider the rest of the elements when the equations of any one particular element are going to be developed. So that is the methodology which is going to be followed. We take the first element, it has two unknowns, that is A1 and A2. We take the second element, it has two another two unknowns, that is A3 and A4. So in total, two elements give you four equations consisting of four unknowns. Now the equations of the element number 1 itself can be derived as we have done, as we have derived the equations of equations in the previous case when the entire domain was of a single element. This derivation we have simply done, we have already done in the previous slides. Now something regarding the continuity of the solution. Since the domain is being broken into two elements, the question arises, the question now which arises is about the continuity of this solution at the inter-element boundary points. The domain has been divided into two elements. The question which now arises is regarding the continuity of the unknown parameter, that is the solution, at inter-element boundary points. Please remember that within each element, the solution is continuous. What we are talking at this particular point is, we are talking about the continuity of the solution at a location which is inter-elemental location between any successive, any consecutive elements. Now this gives us the definition of continuity. A function is of Cn class. A function is of Cn class if the function and its and first n derivatives are continuous in the domain. I am repeating the definition at the moment. A function is of class Cn if the function and its first n derivative are continuous in the domain itself. And this definition is going to be explained with respect to two examples. The first means that if a function itself is continuous, if a function itself is continuous, it is of class C0. But if a function along with its first derivative, both of them are continuous in the domain, then the function belongs to a class C1. If only the function is continuous, if only the function is continuous, it belongs to the class C0. But if the function along with its first derivative, both of them are continuous in the domain, then the function belongs to a class C1. Now we start the development of the two equations, development of elements, development of equations for the two elements. So we have the first element consisting of two nodes, node 1 and node 2, located at xa and xc. The unknowns are a1 and a2. Similarly, the second element, node 3 and node 4. The nodes are located at xc and xb, and the unknowns are x3 and x4. This is element number 1 on the left and element number 2 on the right. Similarly, we had a trial function for element number 1 consisting of expressions for phi 1, phi 2. Similarly, trial function for element number 2 consisting of expressions for phi 3 and phi 4. This we have already discussed, so we need not discuss this in detail. And then coming to the boundary conditions, we have element number 1, element number 2. The boundary conditions are prescribed at x is equal to x1, which happens to be xa, that is the left point in element number 1. Similarly, we have another boundary conditions at x is equal to 2, which is in fact xb, which is the right hand side of element number 2. This is the set of boundary conditions which we have been dealing for the in the previous classes also. So we are going to develop the FEM equation for the same set of boundary condition. Please note that as a process of discretization, in the process of discretization, we have a new node which is located at xc, at which there is no boundary condition which has been prescribed. Okay, we have a new node appearing because of the process of discretization, which is xc in this particular case, and at xc we have no boundary condition which has been prescribed. Now coming to, we have already seen that the equation for the entire domain, when the entire domain was taken up as a single element, we have the equations on display. Thus, when we are going to develop the equations for the two elements, we simply are going to replace xb with xc when we are developing the equations for element number 1, and we are going to replace xa with xc when we are developing the equations for equation number 2. Simply by replacing xb and xa, we are going to get the equations for the two elements. So for element number 1, we have the two nodes at xa and xc. Two unknowns are a1 and a2, and we get the equation for the first element. Do notice that for the equations developed for the first element, we have expressions in terms of xa and xc, because the term xb has been replaced by xc. So this is the first set of two equations which we get for element number 1. Now similarly, repeating these steps for element number 2, we get the two equations in terms of A3 and A4 as the unknowns. So this means that we have developed the four equations for the two elements. Element number 1 gives us two equations in terms of two unknowns A1 and A2. Similarly, element number 2 gives us two equations in terms of two unknowns A3 and A4. And in the next slide, we are simply going to keep the four equations in a single matrix, and then we will analyze the four equations. These are the equations for element number 1, equations for element number 2, and when you substitute the value of xa, xb and xc in these four equations, you get the equations which are going to be on display in the next slide. These are the equations for element number 1. Similarly, for element number 2, you have these two equations. Please notice that the value of the boundary term, that is the term which is appearing on the right hand side, which has to be evaluated at the three nodes, that is x is equal to 1, x is equal to 3 by 2 and x is equal to 2, is appearing as it is. It has not been replaced by any numerical term. Now in the next slide, we are going to keep all these four equations in a matrix form. Because there are four equations, there are four unknowns, the size of the matrix is going to be 4 by 4. So this is that particular matrix. So we have four equations, four unknown. The first two equations, they have only two unknowns A1 and A2. Therefore, the coefficients of A3 and A4 are going to be 0. The first two equations are equations in terms of A1 and A2. Therefore, the coefficients of A3 and A4 are going to be 0. The third and the fourth equations are equations in terms of A3 and A4. Therefore, the coefficients of A1 and A2 have been substituted as 0. So, this is why that the global stiffness matrix is going to contain plenty of zeros, and therefore the global matrix are a sparse matrix in nature. The other thing which is going to be noticed is that since the elemental stiffness matrix themselves happen to be symmetrical in nature, it is also desirable that the global stiffness matrix should also be symmetrical in nature. ठीक है, क्योंकि local stiffness matrix symmetrical होती हैं, therefore it is desirable that the global stiffness matrix should also be symmetrical. Now in the next slide, we are going to impose the condition of continuity between the two elements. Now the domain has been divided into two elements. On display are the two elements with their nodes and the location of the nodes also. And since element number 1 and element number 2 have a node in common, element number 1 and element number 2 actually have a node in common, and that particular node happens to be the node number 2 for element number 1 and node number 3 for element number 2. Both node 2 and node 3 are in fact located at a same coordinate xc. Therefore, it is logical to think that the value of the unknown parameter at this location, which is given by x is equal to 3 by 2, should be the same. Therefore, we get a constraint equation expressed by u1 evaluated at 3 by 2 is equal to u2 evaluated at the same point, that is 3 by 2. So, as a result of this requirement of continuity, what we get is for element number 1, u is given by a151 plus a252, and since at x is equal to 3 by 2, that is the second node, in the first element, phi 1 is going to be 0 and phi 2 is going to be 1, which means that u1 evaluated at 3 by 2 is going to be a2 itself. Similarly, for the second element, the expression for the trial function is u is equal to a353 plus a454, and when you evaluate this trial function at x is equal to 3 by 2, which is the first node of the second element, you get phi 3 to be 1 and phi 4 to be 0, which means that u2 evaluated at 3 by 2 is equal to a3, and since u1 at 3 by 2 and u2 at 3 by 2 is supposed to be equal, this gives us a constraint equation given by a2 is equal to a3. So, this is the enforcement of continuity condition at a point where two elements are in contact. Also notice that when two one-dimensional elements are in contact, the contact is going to be at a point. But when two area elements are in contact, the contact is going to be with respect to a line or with respect to a curve. Similarly, when two volume elements are in contact, the contact is going to be, the nature of the contact is going to be a area. So, depending upon the type of elements which you are choosing, which you have taken for the discretization, the nature of the contact is also going to vary. If the elements which you have taken happens to be one-dimensional elements, the contact is going to be a point contact. For two-dimensional element, the contact is going to be a line contact. and along that particular line, of course, there might be number of nodes. Similarly, when you have taken two volume elements which are in contact, the nature of contact is going to be a area contact. So this is the enforcement of continuity. Now in the next slide, we are going to impose this continuity expression which has been derived, that is A2 is equal to A3, in the four equations which we have developed so far. The four equations are given by equation number 1, and since there are four equations, there also happen to be four unknowns, and when you apply the required continuity equation given by equation number 2, you basically are adding the second column, the terms of the second column and the corresponding terms of the third column. जब आप इक्वेशन नंबर 2 को इक्वेशन नंबर 1 में अप्लाई करते हैं तो बेसिकली the mathematical process which you are implementing, you are basically adding the second column, the terms, the coefficients of the second column with the corresponding terms of the third column. तो जब ये दोनों कॉलम्स ऐड होते हैं, you basically are going to have a matrix which is no longer going to be a square matrix. It is going to be a rectangular matrix containing 4 rows and 3 columns. And since this matrix is not a square matrix, obviously this means that it is not going to be a symmetrical matrix. So the all the advantages of a symmetrical matrix are going to be lost at this particular step. All the advantages of a symmetrical matrix are going to be lost at this particular point, which from the FEM viewpoint is a tremendous loss. In FEM, all the stiffness metrics which we are going to develop, all the stiffness metrics which we are going to develop are going to be symmetrical. So our aim is somehow to regain the symmetrical nature which is lost over here, and that particular symmetry is going to be achieved if we carry out the same mathematical steps which were discussed 3 lectures ago. Kindly remember that in maybe a few lectures back, we took a symmetrical matrix and consisting of 3 equations, and we also took a constraint equation, and then we applied the constraint equation to the symmetrical matrix and carry out some mathematical uh, maneuvers which gave us 2 equations consisting of 2 unknowns, and this particular set of equation itself was symmetrical in nature. So if we repeat, if we apply those mathematical steps which we have already discussed in the previous class to these 4 equations, we are going to have a equivalent matrix of size 3 by 3. And in a nutshell, this means that we are going to add equation number 3 and equation number 4. Okay, no, not equation number 3 and equation number 4. We are going to add equation number 2 and equation number 3 also. So just giving you a thumb rule, the thumb rule is that if you are adding the column number 2 and column number 3, you should also add equation number 2 and equation number 3 to have a symmetrical matrix. This is the thumb rule which you should remember. Similarly, if you had another constraint equation which is applied between, let's say, fifth and the sixth node, so correspondingly you will have to add the fifth and the sixth column, which is going to lose symmetry, and then to regain symmetry you will have to add equation number 5 and 6 also. जो दो कॉलम्स ऐड करते हैं उसी के करस्पॉन्डिंग दो रोज भी आप ऐड करते हैं. इस केस में because you are adding second and third column, you should also add second and third equation. So the moment you add second and third equation, what you get is a equation which is going to be on display in the next slide. The equation which is on display at the moment is wrong, I suppose. Yes, it is wrong, but I suppose the equation on display in the next slide, that is going to be correct. So let's come over there. So this is the initial equation of size 4 by 3, and the moment you, when you add, yes, this is it, the equation number 2. This is a matrix of size 4 by 4. So when you add the second equation with respect to the third equation, you get 3 equations, and since there are only 3 equations, there are going to be 3 unknowns. They have been redesignated as unknown number A1, A2 and A3. A1 happens to be the nodal value at node number 1, A2 happens to be nodal value at node number 2, and A3 happens to be the nodal value at node number 3. This is what appears on the left hand side of the equation. Similarly, coming to the right hand side of the expression, we now see that the two boundary terms are getting added up in the right hand side of the second equation, which is going to be highlighted over here. The right hand side of the second equation consists of two boundary terms which have been highlighted, and if you just happen to uh, look at these two terms closely, you will notice that both these terms have been evaluated at a same point given by x is equal to 3 by 2. In fact, x by through x is equal to 3 by 2 is a location which has been shared by both the elements. So this is what is getting added up in the right hand side. Also notice that in both these expressions, we basically are evaluating the flux. We basically are evaluating the flux at the same point given, and the expression for the flux is x multiplied by du by dx. So x multiplied by du by dx is evaluated at x is equal to 3 by 2. And also notice that one of these fluxes appears with a positive sign and another of these fluxes appears with a negative sign. So obviously this means that there is a point in common, and one flux which is positive means that there is some amount of energy which is entering that point, and another flux which is negative means that there is some energy which is leaving that particular point. So obviously the amount of energy entering a point and the amount of energy which is leaving the point, these two terms are supposed to be equal under the condition that there is no heat source or heat sink located at this particular point. So which means that if there is no heat source or heat sink located at this particular point, the two terms, the two value of fluxes are basically going to cancel out each other. But if there is a heat source or heat sink located at that particular point, the corresponding numerical value of the heat source or heat sink is going to be substituted at the in the right hand side of equation number 3. So this is what is going to be illustrated in the next slide. So we have two values of fluxes given in black. Both these terms are supposed to be evaluated at the same point given by x is equal to 3 by 2. One of the fluxes is with a positive sign, another flux is with a negative sign. And since both of them are going to be same, they are either going to be 0 in case if there is no heat source or heat sink, but if there is a heat source or a heat sink, the corresponding value of this source or the sink is going to be substituted in the right hand side of equation number 2. Now coming to the right hand side of equation number 1 and equation number 3. So right hand side of equation number 1 and 3. The right hand side of equation number 1 is not known, therefore we cannot use the first equation, but the right hand side of equation number 3 is given because we know the boundary condition at this particular point, which means that all the terms in the right hand side of equation number 2 and equation number 3 are known. Therefore, we can use equation number 2 and equation number 3. But then equation number 2 and equation number 3 have three unknowns, A1, A2 and A3. But we have only two equations. So at this particular point, we are going to use the other boundary condition, which was the value of u prescribed at node number 1. That basically is going to be applied to the trial function of the first equation, which is going to give you the value of A1. Now this value of A1 is going to be substituted in equation number 2 and equation number 3 to give you two equations combined with two unknowns. Therefore, the value of A2 and A3 can be found out, which is going to give you a complete FEM solution. So this is how the FEM solution of a two element is going to be achieved. Now the students are requested, because this happens to be a new phenomena, a new concept, and it is very essential for this concept to be understood thoroughly, because at this particular moment this concept has been used to illustrate plenty of things, plenty of new concepts. One of the concepts happens to be the process of assembly. We have actually divided the domain into two elements. We have developed the equations for each element independently. Then those equations have been kept in a single matrix. Then the next step was the requirement of continuity, which destroyed symmetry. And to regain the symmetrical nature of the matrix, some equations were added up to give a square symmetrical matrix. And as a last step, we imposed the essential boundary condition to get the complete FEM solution. And in this process and in the process, we also illustrated that the global stiffness matrix is going to be symmetrical, but it is also going to be a Spear's matrix. So there are plenty of terms which are appearing for the first time in front of all of you. So kindly revise all these terms, go through the lecture carefully, and if you have any queries to be raised, so kindly put up your queries through WhatsApp or kindly phone me, make a call. And in the next lecture, we are going to illustrate the same procedure with the help of the domain which has been divided into 4 elements. We have seen the solution with the help of one element. We have seen the solution with the help of 2 elements. But in the next lecture, we are going to divide the domain into 4 elements and into 8 elements, and then we'll see that how the successive solutions which have been obtained by taking 4 and 8 elements converges towards the exact solution. That is one exercise which we are going to do in the future classes. So that's all for the time being. Thank you.